If you could describe radical acceptance in one word, phrase, or mantra, what would it be?
I belong. We belong. You belong. It's so easy to feel like we don't, for a variety of different reasons. But we all have a destiny that is uniquely ours. We all have a very unique gift. We all have a very unique voice and experience and understanding. And that experience is not to be ashamed of, regardless of whatever identity you may take up. It's actually, your uniqueness is the medicine that we all need for the collective. So we need you. So you belong. I belong. We belong.
Welcome, queer kittens and new earballs. I'm V, a two-spirit human, joy influencer, energy worker, and dad joke connoisseur. All pronouns accepted. This podcast started because we just want cutie BIPOC to be well, to feel seen, and to be heard. So let this be your queer compass guiding you towards radical acceptance. And wherever you are in your wellness journey, just know you're not alone. We hope this podcast brings you joy where you'll learn, laugh, heal, and grow. Hey folks, y'all are in for a treat. Today's episode, we have a very, very, very special guest to share with y'all. And some of you might know her, some of you might not. Some of y'all are going to want to know her more. And her name is Juju Bae, she, her. She is a bisexual, self-proclaimed bad bitch witch, reality TV star, Oshún Priestess, author, and podcaster for a Little Juju Podcast. As a team here at Quest, we all gave each other a task to reach out and to contact our dream guest and cross our fingers and hope that they want to be a part of this podcast. And let me tell you, Rafaela, our associate producer, my partner, struck gold, y'all. And we're going to have Rafaela here a little bit to let you know about this process. Hi, Rafi.
Hi. Yes, this was a dream of mine to have Juju Bae on the podcast. She has been pivotal in my spiritual growth as also a witch and also just all around good human. I think plays a big part to do with Juju. She is an invaluable resource when it comes to diasporic and African spiritualism in her podcast, the Little Juju Podcast. But aside from that, she's raw, she's human and vulnerable in her podcast in a way that really connected to me and made me feel at home and made me feel seen. And I felt like she held my hand throughout a lot of ups and downs in my spiritual growth. And for me, it was a goal to bring her on the podcast because I really wanted to continue that legacy of spreading the good Juju gospel, as she always says, and offering the love and the wisdom that she shares to another baby spiritualist out there, someone that's just looking to figure out where to belong and they're not quite sure. I think she's one of those people that can really hold your hand in a beautiful and meaningful way. So I'm so excited to have her on this episode. I'll be honest with you guys, I was low-key in tears during the whole episode in the background because I was just like in awe of the fact that this was all happening. But yeah, it was great. I'm super excited.
Yeah. And you came over your fear of rejection and just did it. You just sent it. And she said yes. I remember you screamed.
Oh my God. Yeah, for like a day or two, we were just like every couple of minutes we'd look at each other and just like squeal like little kids. Yeah, I sent out an email to her. I actually was meaning to apologize to her because I think I sent her the email like multiple times, like edited and re-edited because I'm really bad with computers. But I sent her an email with this long letter kind of professing my love for her and her work, and also asking if she wanted to be on this little queer podcast that, you know, would be honored to have her on. And it took me a really long time to build up the courage to even do it, because I was really afraid of rejection. And with the help of the team and the support of these incredible people pushing me to face my fears, I did it, and it worked. Yeah, you know, if you have those moments in your life that you are just at the precipice of something and that little like fear gremlin is in the background trying to pull you back, don't let it, because there might be a Juju Bae golden nugget at the end of that rainbow. So just follow it, grab it, take it.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Oh, yeah. Y'all are in for a treat where we break down decolonizing spirituality, where we're going through finding healing through ancestral connections, and even talk about queerness and ancestry and how the whole spirituality comes into play with queerness. But I'm not going to say too much because y'all need to go ahead and listen to the rest to get the juice. Also, Juju has got a book coming out June 18th, y'all. So go look it up right now. Go on Google, type the Book of Juju, that is Juju, a Serendipitous Journey. So pre-order it now. The link will be in the show notes. We already pre-ordered a copy, y'all, so get yours. And we hope you enjoy this episode.
Thanks again.
Hi, my name is Juju Bae. I am a priestess of Oshún. I am a Hulu practitioner. I guess I'm a reality TV girly in some ways. And I have my own podcast called A Little Juju Podcast, where I really just consider myself an educator about Black and African Diasporan religions and systems. And my pronouns are she, her.
Wonderful. And I like to jump into a little question so people can, know your heart a little bit by asking, what message do you think the world needs to hear right now?
Ooh, what message do I think the world needs to hear? There's so many messages, but I will say I actually pulled a card before I got on the call today. And one of the messages was to listen to what we are hearing, to really just to pay attention to what we are witnessing, whether globally, socially, within our own personal lives, but to just take a moment to really take in the moment and see what comes up for all of us individually and collectively, because we are in a time where we have to pay attention. And so I think that's just the small thing that we can do in this moment that will actually end up benefiting us in the end.
I love that. Absolutely. I really wanted to share with you in terms of listening. I've been listening to your podcast with my partner for 3 years.
Oh, y'all OGs.
I guess so. When we met, we were just spiritual friends. And because for me, I never liked to mix spirituality with sex, because I held my spiritual friends so highly. I didn't want to mess it up with sex.
Yeah, that's real.
And and she told me that she was doing work with her connection with Oshún, and she was listening to a podcast, your podcast, and how both of y'all, your experience with Oshún was so aligned. So we were basically, your podcast and our love story were aligned. Like, you are part of our love story.
Oh, wow. That's so special. That's so sweet. Look at Oshún just being sweet all the way around. I love it. I love
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. So I wanted to thank you for that before we jumped into all this.
Oh, thank you for sharing that. My little water sign heart is very happy.
Oh, I love it. Yes. I think mine is a water sign. I'm a Venus in Cancer.
Ooh, I'm a Venus in Cancer too.
Here we go.
Here we go. Love fest.
Exactly. So how is your soul doing right now?
Oh, my soul. My soul is feeling a lot of ways. But in this very moment, my soul actually feels quite content and very grounded. In this moment, my soul is feeling that. Now, if you ask me in another moment, I don't know. But this moment, my soul is actually feeling very rested and, settled. How about you?
Oh, good question came back at me. I'm feeling really grateful. I'm feeling really grateful. I recently got a really severe ankle injury that has slowed my ass down and has me trusting in community and getting my head out of scarcity. And your podcast also helped with that.
Okay, period. We love that.
So I'm allowing the abundance to come and show up however it wants to show up.
Yeah,
instead of getting
I'm glad
in the
you're
way.
Healing.
Thank you. Appreciate it. The next question, I want to jump back. I want to know a little bit about Little Juju Bae and how it was growing up as a young Black queer woman in Baltimore.
Yes. Little Juju. Yes, I am from Baltimore, Maryland. I rep Baltimore very hard. Will always love my home. Let's see. Young me, I was very quiet as a child, actually. I feel like I actually struggled to fit in a lot of ways. And I don't know why. I was raised an only child. I eventually kind of sort of attained a brother, but I was raised primarily an only child. And so I think in some ways you have that only child loneliness, but also the ability to make friends and fun and imagination like with yourself and being very content with that. And then also spending a lot of time around adults. So I was always constantly around a lot of adults in my life, elders in my life, grandparents, a lot of great aunts, great uncles. Like I grew up around a lot of elders. So I was kind of the little kid that always got the like old soul, kind of thing going on. But that's just because I was around old people all the time. And I was raised pretty spiritual. I was raised Catholic. And even though I eventually actually left the Catholic Church, in my late teens, I would say, I did grow up with like a dad who was really active in the church. He directed the choir. He played the drums. My grandmother sang, my aunt sang. So I was also very like arts inclined as well, that I can also thank the church in a lot of ways, even though I don't identify with the Catholic Church necessarily in that way anymore, or church generally. But I do understand that like it really helped shape and mold the person that I am today. And I identify as a witch now. I think I've always been curious, but I don't know if I've always been a witch. I don't know if Little Mean was always a witch, but I definitely was thinking things, but not things to talk about. There was no space to question certain things. But so I was quiet, shy, reserved. But with my friends, I was fun, but I had an old soul. That was Little Me.
Yes, definitely Cancer vibes. I love that.
Very much a Cancer child through and through.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, that's so beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. And I did listen to one episode that you mentioned about your middle school culture shock moment. And you said this sentence that hit me so hard.
Oh, what
you
was
said
it?
that abandoning parts of ourselves and our history to align with the dominant culture.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh my
I had to do that a lot.
How did that realization that you were doing that, like how has that shaped your life?
Wow. Well, yeah. So my middle school was a predominantly white school. And it wasn't always that. It actually shifted quite a bit while I was there to where the percentages changed quite drastically. But when I first started, it was a predominantly white school. And I think when you are a non-white person, being schooled and taught in your everyday environment, like the classroom is not a reflection of you, it gives you certain messages that you may not have the language to have. I didn't have the language around what was going on around me or what I was actively doing. But later down the line, I can look back and be like, oh, I think I hated myself, but not because I really did, but because there were things around me that hated me or didn't understand me or didn't value me, or all of the Black children always had detentions and were suspended. And that tells a story to a young Black child. And so I definitely think I got that story and tried to fit in or just kind of go under the radar to not be, you know, that Black person getting in trouble, or that Black girl who was too loud, you know. And I internalized a lot of that just because of what was happening around me and what was happening to my homegirls who were Black. You know, I did hang out with the Black people in the school, but I just had a lot of messaging from a lot of teachers and even school counselors about how to be. And you put that on top of going to a Catholic school and all of the stuff that comes with that. It's just like, okay, I just need to be demure and quiet and just go under the radar and silence myself so that the least amount of attention is on me so I can move past this. And in some ways, I think that's for survival. And in other ways, I think I'm still trying to find my voice from that. And it's so interesting you asked me that question, because I've never thought about it like that until this very moment. I've never thought that some of the ways and reasons why I talk so much and put myself out there is because I didn't allow myself to talk when I was younger, or I was silenced in a lot of different ways in my life. So thank you for that, because it just helped me make my own personal realization in this very second.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm a deep thinker for sure.
Okay, I see. Is there some Scorpio in there somewhere?
Actually, no. What's deep thinkers? What's that? Jupiter?
Yeah,
I think.
And like
I'm
Aquarius, not sure. Aquarian energy too.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of Virgo in there, a bunch of Cancer everywhere. Some Taurus.
Well, the Cancer will do it too. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Or Pisces.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When I thought about that, I was just like, okay, so sometimes we get so caught up in our code switching that we lose ourselves a little bit. And I've been like trying to unlearn all those narratives and like get it out of my head. Like I've been jumping out of, for a long time, I've jumped out of the church's beliefs. I mean, some of them I still kind of hang on to, but for the most part, I'm like, y'all crazy. And I've been jumping a little bit more into like my indigenous practices. And so like hearing like your stories and how you've been getting into your indigenous ways, I was just kind of wondering, I was like, how did you like get yourself out of that church narrative and into African traditions and getting back to the roots of your DNA, you know? Yeah. How did you go from that to that? If that makes sense.
I mean, of course, there's a story around like the steps of how I found Africana, often what I refer to them as spiritual traditions. But to go back quickly, like, I don't think that I have completely divorced myself from the teachings that the church has in good ways and in bad ways. Like, I'm still unlearning. I'm still growing. I'm still trying not to project things that my ancestors or the Orisha or whatever deity feel about me, which were things that I thought God, you know, Christian God, you know, thought about me. So I'm still like, that's an active process. I don't think I'll ever be finished releasing myself from so much of the shame that I picked up on, so much of the Catholic guilt that I've had around my body, being in love with a woman, like all of these things. I'm still working through that actively. So I did want to like name that. I don't know. It's every day I'm trying. But I'm so glad that I found Africana systems and practicing hoodoo and practicing Ifa specifically as an Oshún priest. The journey was long. Like I've been almost every tradition. I've been Catholic, I've been Baptist, I've been Baha'i. I looked into Buddhism. I looked into Islam. I was looking into Judaism. I was like I was into Rastafarianism. I was just so like, I need to find something else. I'm just looking for myself in whatever. And I think I found myself through my ancestors, just through seeing people talk about ancestors or name ancestors and being like, oh, what's that? What does that mean to venerate your ancestors or to love your ancestors or that your ancestors are still with you? Like, huh? So I think that journey and that exploration just through seeing people converse about ancestors, like led me to this moment of like, oh, it's because they are there. Like, ancestors are some of the concept of ancestors is some of the oldest indigenous knowledge that we literally have across whatever spiritual system in whatever part of the world. Like, the ancestors are important. And so I think the moment that I truly welcomed them into my life is how I've been able to slowly start to chip away at all of the stuff that has held me back or is unnecessary that I've been holding on to.
Ooh, that makes me want to do a little bit of a deep dive.
Okay, I'm ready.
Even
I
deeper.
got my scuba gear on. I'm ready.
So you're very open and vulnerable in your podcast, and there was one episode where you really talk about like you struggling with depression, and you mentioned the ancestors saved your life. Do you feel comfortable talking a little bit more about that?
Yes, I do. I've dealt with depression for most of my life. Not currently, but for majority of my life, I would say, and have been clinically diagnosed as someone who was depressed from a very, very young age. And, you know, I don't know where that came from. I mean, of course, we all have our trauma. Of course, we have all the things and, you know, family and abuse, you know, that I do have a story around that. But I think it was my bout with depression, probably 2017-ish, when I was in graduate school to get my doctorate in clinical psychology. And because I always felt like I was a healer, I always knew that I was a healer. So I went to school, I got into school, I was in Chicago. And I had a dream about an ancestor of mine. And this isn't something that I was actively doing work in. And I also was not someone who had prophetic dreams or dreams about my ancestors or anything like that at this time in 2017. So I had this dream about a foremother of mine. And I could tell that she was my paternal grandmother's like great. So like way far back. But in the dream, I basically saw an aerial view of a plantation. And somehow in the dream, I knew it was in South Carolina. And I knew that I saw a woman who kind of looked like my grandmother, also kind of looked like me. And I understood her to be a foremother of mine. And basically, I watched a day in the life. Like, I watched a day in the life of her as a slave woman. And I watched a very brutal attack happen to her from two men. And it shook me so much that I woke up in tears, obviously. And I felt like she was trying to communicate something to me, like to help her. And, you know, I'm waking up and I'm like, why did I have this dream that was very clear? It was one of the clearest dreams I've ever had. It was so detailed. And how am I supposed to help this lady? And who is this lady? I know she's like a great somebody. So long story short, I go to class the next day. This was the only Black professor I had, and I had her class that day. And, you know, she reached out to me at the end of class. She's like, you were quiet today. You seem like something's wrong. And I told her about the dream. I'm like, Dr. Moore, I'm just shook. I don't know what this means, but I had this wild dream of like an ancestor. And she's like, that's because they're trying to talk to you. And I was like, girl, what do you mean? What does that mean? So she takes me to the librarian in my graduate school, and she introduces her. Her name is Miss Carey. And I learned that Miss Carey is a genealogist, and I tell her the story. And Miss Carey says, I'm going to help you figure out who that woman is because your ancestors are trying to tell you something. And Dr. Moore then later said that, you know, you are in school to validate the traumas and the healing of strangers. And you have not validated the trauma within your lineage. Like, you haven't validated the own trauma within your family and the things that have been passed down to you. And so your ancestors are asking you to help there before you go out to help others. And so that's how I found my ancestors, you know, through that dream of this woman who I believe now through ancestral research and divination and genealogical research, name was Eliza Hilton, who would have been an enslaved woman in Manning, South Carolina, who was a part of my paternal line of ancestors. So I do all of this for my ancestors, and particularly for Eliza Hilton, my foremother, for showing me that and doing that work. And I think that has truly healed me from within and my family.
Wow. Yeah, you got to have a certain openness to be able to even listen, like you said in the beginning.
Paying attention, listening.
That's incredible.
I listened.
Yeah.
I listened.
And how would you describe your relationship with your ancestors?
My ancestors, and for folks who don't know, like they are the folks who have descended or ascended into the other realm. People that I have descended from, who are related to me by blood, but also related to me by just bond, by relationship. So it's not always blood folks, but just the people that I consider and who consider me family. And so my ancestors are my absolute best friends. I can talk to the dead. Someone told me recently, like, you shouldn't say talk to the dead because people are going to like try to put you away. But it's like, I get it, but I do talk to the dead. So I don't want to be put away, but I do talk to the dead. And so, yeah, they're like my best friends. They guide me. I reach out to them and ask them questions when I'm concerned or confused about what's going on in my life and need their encouragement and their advice. And they always come through. They are hilarious. They are silly. Like they get it, which is why I love ancestors so much. I love all the deities. I love all the gods, but ancestors are so great because they were once human. And so they get it. They're very, I don't have to explain to them fully what's going on through my human minds. Cause they're like, girl, we get it. Like we've been through that. Now do this or think this or consider this. And they're not perfect either. Like they're not, which I also appreciate. Like they're still worthy of veneration and honor because they've paved the way for us, but they're not necessarily perfect. Like they've made mistakes. They understand that. Sometimes I don't take their advice because I don't think it's good. but I know that they have my best interest at heart. And so it's nice to know that like I can experience a deep, boundless love, otherworldly love. And I think that is part of what pulled me out of my depression, because so much of my personal depression was about feeling unloved. And so I'm like, I don't feel unloved. I literally couldn't. There's just too many things in my life that show me I'm so deeply loved, especially by them. So yeah, they're my besties.
That's beautiful. I really love that. And are there ever any ancestors that don't want to see you thrive?
For me, or just generally?
I think maybe it's a general question, just because being queer and then just thinking if they were human back then, like, and colonized back then and in that like homophobic mindset.
Yeah.
Like, is that possible?
Yeah, it's interesting. So some people would essentially say that if the people that you descend from, your family, do not want to see you elevate, then you wouldn't consider them an ancestor anyway. Because an ancestor isn't necessarily just someone that died. It's someone who like loves you and lived a decent life and tried and is understanding, not perfect, but they would never try to harm you or belittle you. That wouldn't be an ancestor. So in some frameworks, no, you wouldn't have an ancestor like that because they would not be an ancestor. They would just be a dead person, if that makes sense. Now, I will say that I think ancestors don't always understand everything. And some of them don't understand queerness because either they were not queer, they didn't really know people who were queer, it wasn't talked about, also colonized mind, in the same ways that I can have internalized queer phobia as a queer person. It's the same way that they can have, whatever. So I've had to communicate with some of my ancestors. They didn't necessarily wish me harm, but they were like, what are you doing? We don't get, what are you doing? Where's your husband? What is going on? And I had to say, yeah, like, that's just not the story. That's just not my story, y'all. My story is this, and this is how I feel, and this is how, and I've had to be very clear and open and honest with them about that. And thankfully for me, my story is they were like, oh, okay. I felt that too. Or, oh, I mean, I've always kind of felt that way towards whatever, but that was never anything I could act on. It's just like, so a lot of times they're just tripping that we have the audacity to like live how we want to live. And when you update them, they're like, oh, okay, got it. I'm here for it. Do your thing. So that's been how my ancestors have been. But then I also want to uplift the fact that I have queer ancestors. Like I have ancestors who are across the gender spectrum they may not even call themselves queer, but they were queer. I actually did have a literal uncle who was gay, who passed away during the AIDS epidemic, who is with me all the time. So, ancestors also are gender fluid and queer and trans and all those things as well. And they deserve to be elevated and talked to as well.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, that's cool. As you were coming more authentically with yourself, you were almost unlocking them to being more authentic with themselves. Thus, like, I've realized when I'm not being true to who I am, I fall deeper into my depression. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I wonder if those two things align, is like, as you come into yourself, you're leaving all those narratives behind, and those are what were causing the depression.
Right. In a lot of ways, I think so. And I think that unlocking and that releasing also releases, like you said, my ancestors' stress and their traumas and the things that they didn't feel that they could move through or heal from. Even just being with me and watching me do it does something for them. So this is why I think ancestor work is so important, because it really is like deep cellular level healing, like soul healing. And it even impacts the living family, whether they acknowledge it, whether they know about it, whether they're interested in it, doesn't really matter. They end up benefiting from this like ancestral labor that some of us carry, who are interested in uplifting those traditions and those folks who have gone on before us. And in the Orisha tradition, we say that, doing the healing work heals 7 generations forward in time and backward in time. So the things that we do today are not just about us. They heal generations before who haven't even been born, and those who have long gone on.
Oh, so you're healing generational trauma for people before you, people current, and people after you.
Mm-hmm. And that's a lot.
I love that. That is a lot of work, definitely. And me and my partner, we do a lot of our own work sometimes, and sometimes we are exhausted. Like, how do you protect yourself from like spiritual exhaustion?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I do. I don't know. If my partner was in here, she would be like, she don't. I be doing a lot, honestly. I really do. This is something that I'm actively working on. So I don't even want to act like, well, I do that. I don't know. Like I'm trying. My ancestors were just talking to me about this yesterday, about how I need to have a better work-life spiritual balance. I don't exactly know what that looks like yet, but I hear them and I hear my body. Yeah. So I'm listening. The key word. I am listening. I don't know how, but I'm paying attention.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm trying.
Can I share a little mantra that my partner taught me?
Yes, please.
Yeah, wonderful. She taught me this because I'm a bartender in the gay district here in San Francisco. Ooh. And, that's a lot of energy. Yeah. So she taught me this saying, and I say it before work, and it has helped me so much that sometimes I even say it before I go see my family. Mm-hmm. It's my energy is my own. It is sacred and it remains with me. Ooh. And I say it like 3 times. Yeah,
I love that.
Say it. my energy is my own. It is sacred.
It is sacred.
And it remains with me.
And it remains with me. I love that.
Yeah, it has helped so much. And because me and my partner, we both have our own gifts too. I guess I would be more clairvoyant and she's more clairaudio. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And where we bonded to with your podcast at first was like, oh shit, you don't think I'm crazy? Like, I can tell you this and you're vibing with it. And that's also why she showed me your podcast, because like we were sharing each other our gifts.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you, like, when did you know you had your gifts? And were you ever scared of them?
Yeah, my gifts came in adulthood. I did not see myself as being a gifted child in that way. I mean, I was a healer child, I guess. Like, I remember supporting my friends when I was very young. I remember if my friends had pain, I would like lay my hands on them and they'd be like, oh, I feel better now. I'm like, yeah, I know. Like that was, but it didn't mean anything. It didn't mean I was gifted. It's just like what I would do. But like the ancestral work, the seeing the dead, talking to the dead, the prophetic dreaming, the strong intuition, that came in adulthood. So I didn't really have to deal with this much when I was younger. So I think it coming in adulthood allowed me to have just a level of maturity and understanding around it, because it was something that I was looking into. And my gifts just got stronger as I started to understand veneration, as I started to work with different deities. I started to like really, I opened the portal for myself and it opened and I was like, okay, I'm here. All right. Like I this is what I wanted. This is what I'm calling on. So yeah, I think I have a lot of boundaries like with my spirits for sure. I used to have a lot more spirits, experience possession a lot more, and just like a lot of wild stuff happening. That doesn't really happen as much anymore because I do have really strong spiritual boundaries. So I'm very grateful that this is a gift that has developed in my adulthood, because I was able to be outside and have fun and not think about any of this shit until now. And I'm like, okay, I'm cool with it now. This is the work. This is my job also, but this is the work, and I'm here for it. I'm good with it.
Yeah. This putting your hands on and healing your friends reminded me of like something my grandma used to do when I would get hurt, and she would just be like, sana sana colita de rana. And then I'd be all like, okay, I'm cool. And I just go play.
I'm healed.
Exactly.
Yep.
Oh man. And hearing like you moving through your gifts and not having that fear, it really made me think about, I'm about to drop this, your Emmy GLAAD nominated show you're on, Living for the Dead. Yeah. Where you're over there helping the living by healing the dead. Like the resident witch, the reality star.
That's the tagline.
Yeah. Oh man. I mean, I watch all kinds of paranormal investigation shows. Like,
oh, cool.
I kind of love that stuff. I think there's like the brothers or something. There's like a
Ghost Brothers, maybe.
Ghost Brothers. Yeah. Yeah, they're hilarious.
They're hilarious.
But I think what separated your show from all of them was your inclusion on it. I also love to listen to a cult podcast, which my partner also brought me on to Bigfoot Collectors Club, where
that sounds familiar.
They mentioned you on the podcast and was like, "Oh, we need to get her on the podcast."
Oh, so cool.
They described your energy as like a mountain, that you were unmovable in all of these like super scary moments in this show, and you were just so calm, so cool. Like a whole ass chandelier was moving by a spirit and you were just, we good. You just like saved everyone. I was like, I want to be in that like confidence in scary situations. And I was wondering like, how do you remain so cool in what normally people would freak out?
That's so funny. Ken is so funny. They all said like that was definitely, it was not an act. I fully was just vibes the whole time. Things would be happening. I would be like, okay, like here we are. Like, we're here. I don't know. I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I really think it's just my demeanor. Like I won't say I'm very flat. I have a flat affect because I don't, but I don't get shaken in that way very often. I'm not very, it's not that I'm not emotional, because I am, but
Cancer.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm super it's not that I don't feel things. I do, but I think Maybe it's trauma. I don't know. But I just give off. I'm chilling. I'm always just chilling.
Yeah.
But even if it's a big deal, and sometimes it's hard to show it. Like my partner will do something nice. I'm like, oh, thanks, babe. She's like, are you happy? I'm like, I'm so happy. Like, what am I supposed to do? Just jump around? Like, I just be chilling. Honestly, it's not called. I'd really just be chilling.
Oh man, I thought it was like you had some like spiritual protection in your pocket.
I mean, yes, I am very protected. Yes, maybe that's what allows me to chill so much. But I just am like, okay, here we are.
That's funny. Oh man. Oh, sorry. I'm just like thinking about that. I'm just like, I'm still sweating just thinking about some of these situations you were put in and how chill you were. I was like, I would have ran up out of that place.
Yeah, there were scary moments for sure. There were definitely scary moments, but what I'm gonna do? Run away? Like, we got to deal with this. We're here. They called us.
Right? You ran into it. You were like, oh, Roz is going through something? All right, I'll be right there. I was like, yeah, this is what these paranormal shows need, is somebody like Juju. Instead of just like pissing off the energies and then getting whatever they can on the videos and then leaving.
Yeah, see, I didn't want no parts of that.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be a part of that. We came with respect and they respected us for the most part.
Seeing that confidence, it was really beautiful to watch that, see you empowered in your work, in your power. It was really inspiring to see, because hearing how vulnerable you are on the podcast and on a Little Juju podcast, if y'all are still like, what podcast y'all talking about? And I wanted to ask you, because I know that you asking for money sometimes is out of your comfort zone, and you talked about it on your podcast. And here at Quest, like, we really believe that community is the cure. How did you feel when community came through and kept your podcast alive by helping you raise your goal of $30K?
I was and am, so grateful to my community for that. That ask was something that a friend, she's kind of like a mentee, kind of like a friend, told me to do. I was telling her, like, I think the podcast, she's out of here. Like, I can't upkeep it. I can't pay the team. I can't do it on my own. And she was like, why don't you crowdsource? And I was like, no, I can't do that. She's like, are you kidding me? You can crowdsource and meet your goal and exceed your goal. She's like, I will help you. So I met with her a few times. She walked me through like how to do it, because I was very sort of against it. And I went to my spirits and they were like, yeah, why are you not asking your people to support you like you talk about? Like, this is an opportunity for you to show up as the person that talks about community and asking and all of that. And I was like, ooh, that's really hard. It's easier to talk about, harder to do. Don't recommend. But I do recommend, because it worked out for me. So I'm just so thankful and grateful that folks showed up for me and that the podcast is back. And most importantly, like, I have a really, really great team of folks like who I couldn't do the show without. So it's healing me in a lot of different ways. So I'm so thankful and really humbled by it. I truly am.
Yeah, you step to the side so the abundance can flow in.
Yep.
And so you can see how loved you are and the impact that you make on people that you might not ever get to meet.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you
it's
think
mind-boggling.
Yeah. Do you think that this confidence played in to you writing your book?
Ooh. It's so interesting because a lot of people, when I'm in interviews or just talking, do refer to me as being confident or asking me about my confidence. And I don't fully see that yet, that confidence. So even with the book, I wasn't out here trying to get a book deal. I wasn't planning to write a book. People were reaching out to me and telling me that I need to write a book and it needs to be with their publishing house. And I'm like, me write a book? A book felt very grown. It just felt like, yeah, I'll write a book when I'm like 45. Like, that's what you do when you're like 45. You write a book. not for me to write one. And so it got to the point where I'm like, okay, maybe 5 to 6 different publishers have reached out to me like, hey, will you write your book with us? So where, of course, I go to my spirits always. And I'm like, is it time for me? They're like, girl, why are you even asking? Are you kidding me? Write the book. You have the content. You have the work. You're doing the work. You have a years-long podcast. Write what you talk about. And that was it. So I just did. It was very serendipitous. It was not intentional. I really was not trying. And I don't even mean to sound any kind of way about that, but that is truly what happened. Like, my life is often me just vibing, and then something comes along and I'm like, oh, okay, I got to do this. It's not because I think that I'm exceptionally confident or anything like that. It's just I just keep being shown that I'm doing the right thing and on the right path. So I just listen. Like, I'm just being obedient to the moment and to the spirit. That's all.
That's beautiful. And I know from experience between me and my partner and her being also her connection to Oshún, that Oshún will push you to see your potential. She will put things in front of you to show you already got it.
That she will. That she is like a mother who is like, girl, get it together. Like, you're you. Sassy. Are you kidding? Get it together. Like, stop playing in everyone's face. And you're like, oh. So I always ask Oshún, I say, Mommy, help me to see myself how you see me. And she has been. She's helping me grow in my confidence.
That's beautiful. So what is this book about? What is it called? And when is it going to be released?
Yes. So the Book of Juju is the title. Africana Spirituality for Healing, Liberation, and Self-Discovery. And it releases June 18th, 2024. And it is all about the ancestors. My claim within the book is basically that the dead, our ancestors, have not left us. Like, we are not alone. The ancestors and the dead deeply impact who we are, our choices, our feelings, our intuitions, even down to the policies and laws that we experience. A lot of it is because of dead people, you know. So the dead are so intertwined into our lives. And so my book is a suggestion to folks who are interested in really tapping into having the spiritual allies to know how to go about that process, from altar building through spiritual communication. There's also questions throughout. It's kind of a journal as well, like to think about your ancestral relationships, what they've done for you, what things make you comfortable, what things make you uncomfortable. So it's really for like the novice and also like the experienced practitioner to understand what it means to be rooted in the ancestors, and then tangible actions on how you can move forward and do that. There's some spells in there too. You know, I included a lot of different things. So I'm so excited about it. I'm so proud of it. And I just hope people like it.
Oh, I'm sure they will. Anything that your magic is on, folks are gonna love it. Because
Ashe, thank you.
We love you. I will speak for the masses.
Ashe, thank you for saying that.
You're welcome. And where can people buy it?
Anywhere. Maybe I can provide you all the link, because you can pre-order it anywhere. You can support your local books. There's some local bookstores on there. Or if you want to get it on the 18th from Amazon, like, you can pre-order it wherever there's a list. So I can send you all the link for all the pre-order options.
Oh, yeah. We'll definitely throw that into the show notes. Being that we're a queer wellness podcast, and people that might be interested in getting into the Africana spiritualism, you know, there's a lot of homophobia when it comes to like spiritualism and religion and things like that. And I was wondering, like, if somebody is in the LGBTQ plus community, like, what's your advice for them to arrive in these spaces safely?
My advice would be to start with your ancestors. A lot of these spaces are there to really help you develop and understand, and maybe potentially initiate into deities, etc., receiving shrines. But, you know, you don't have to initiate. Well, technically you do, but let's go with me. You don't have to initiate into your ancestors. You know, you already have that birthright and that connection to these divine beings that is your family. So I think when you have a really solid understanding of who they are and how to connect to them, you'll feel secure and safe to go into other spaces and have the level of confidence to be able to ask the elder or whoever is the head spiritualist or priest or whoever, how do you feel about queer folks? Or are there any other queer people who are a part of this community? What do you think about that? And those are questions that we are allowed to ask, and people should feel empowered to ask. I know that's probably not a common thing in Christianity. So many times people tell stories about how they asked a question in their church or from the pastor and they were like, shut up, or they didn't answer the question, or you can't ask questions. No, feel empowered to ask questions, feel comfortable and not to be pressured to join any kind of spiritual house or community. But again, focus on your ancestors before trying to do a lot with like other outside deities. Like, they will help you feel the support and the groundedness that you need, and then even see if it's necessary for you to join a house. And then you can always kind of go back to them and say, how do my ancestors feel about this particular space that I'm in? How do I feel with them there? So that would be my advice in that regard.
Awesome.
Because it's still out. The homophobia is still out here. It's everywhere. There's no, I don't want to say there's no safe space, but every place has been impacted by bullshit. So we do have to sort through that.
Yeah, colonialism.
Colonialism, right.
For sure. Okay, so this is our last question that we like to ask everyone.
Okay.
If you could describe radical acceptance and self-care in one word, phrase, or mantra, what would it be?
It would be, I belong. I belong. We belong. You belong. It's so easy to feel like we don't, for a variety of different reasons. But we all have a destiny that is uniquely ours. We all have a very unique gift. We all have a very unique voice and experience and understanding. And that experience is not to be ashamed of, regardless of whatever identity you may take up. It's actually, your uniqueness is the medicine that we all need for the collective. So we need you. So you belong. I belong. We belong.
I wanted to raise my hands. That was beautiful. Thank you for that. Oh,
thank you for that question.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being with our little podcast here.
Of course. Yeah. I enjoyed myself. Thank you. It was very intentional. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. How can people follow you or find you?
Yes, people can find me. I'm all over the web. But my socials is ITSJUJUBAE. It's Juju Bae on pretty much everything. You can follow my podcast page, A Little Juju Podcast, spelled out just like it sounds, on Instagram. But I'm on TikTok. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Instagram. You can watch Living for the Dead on Hulu, season 1. And you can get my book, The Book of Juju. If you look that up and Google it, you will see a link to find a copy of that. So Juju Bae everywhere. I'm now Googleable. I Googled myself before this call. I was like, oh, I have a thing. Okay. So you can Google me.
Do you got any shout outs you want to give to the people?
Oh, shout outs. Well, shout out to everyone who listens to the podcast and who listened to this episode. And I'm just wishing the best on whoever is listening to this, and wishing you success and blessings, any ray and sweetness over your journey. And shout out to the ancestors. Period.
Thank you again. It was such a pleasure to have you.
Likewise. Thank you.
We have so much more to explore and share with you on the pod. Tap that follow or subscribe button to get every episode as soon as it's released. And give us a 5-star rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And join our wellness community on Instagram at Quest Wellness Pod. This podcast was produced by Puka Puka Creative. Executive producer, Stevie Kwok. Producer, editor, and sound designer, Leah Jackson. Associate producer, Rafaela Landestoy. Original music produced by Basque. His music is amazing. And we can't forget the emotional support by our fur babies, Frankie, Nugget, and Pukalani. Self-proclaimed was okay for me to say because she calls herself a bad bitch witch, because I didn't feel comfortable calling her a bitch. So that's why I put it in there. Self-proclaimed bad bitch witch. I was like, oh my God, I can't just say that. And people are like, oh my God, this masculine person is calling a feminine a bitch.